Dennis was, as they'll tell you, came to Austin just sort of before gay liberation and all that happened. So was here during that period. He's been an important character in the gay community as a playwright. He wrote the gay plays back in the 70s. He was part of the group that did Esther's Follies with Doug Dyer and friends of those people. When we, Kip and I moved here in '88, Dennis at that time had been living in Seattle and was away and came back. Through him, we met Cliff Douglas, who was one of the major directors in our lives. So Dennis has always been around, and he's a wonderful storyteller. He's a playwright and a writer, a poet, and a novelist. He and I worked on this novel together. I assisted him in publishing the thing, doing the layout.
Well, if you hadn't told me, I would never got it done. So that's true. The truth.
I wrote him every page. And Dennis is going to tell us about the early days in Austin. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Well, I came to Austin in 1965 to train as it were, for the Peace Corps. Went to India and came back shortly. And then I moved. In mid-70s, I lived in New York, and then I've always gone back and forth to San Francisco for a time in Seattle, 2 years in Seattle. But I always came back to Austin because, first of all, it was cheap, and I've always loved it. I loved the old people. When I first came here, they were my favorites, the old commies and the radicals. But thinking about how to frame this presentation today, I decided to use what's left of the buildings at 24th and Guadalupe in that area as a framework for recounting what happened, how it happened. So let's look. Oh, that's me a long time ago, and I have to confess, I still see myself in my inner head. Right? And today I discovered a bald spot, which has gotten me, back of my head. But anyway, the first meeting of GLF, the Gay Liberation Front, took place in this room right here in Sutton Hall on the UT campus. And there were probably, I'd say 15 or 20 men and women there. And we sort of met anonymously for. Step backward. Okay, all right. We sort of met anonymously for about, I think, the summer. We started in the spring of 70, probably March of 1970. And then we went anonymously through the summer. And then when everybody got back and the administration discovered us, we had moved to the student union.
And do you remember how this ever got organized to start with? Who gathered people?
Okay, there was a guy named Jim Denny, who was a brilliant linguist, spoke and wrote 7 languages, and he was the person who sort of sparked the. But it's important to remember that the news of Stonewall came through the Village Voice. That's how we first heard about it, was the Village Voice. But we had been meeting sort of informally, and I lived in the first gay commune at First and Natchez. The house has been moved, and the site is underneath the convention center there. But we didn't like to be always at New York's behest. We considered ourselves independent of the New York hegemony, and so we met in March of 70. I used to get it confused. I used to say it was 69, but it was March of 70. And we moved to the student union and got kicked out of there. And then we moved across the street to the University Y.
Let's see, here we've got the student union.
Here, yeah, this is student union at the time. And I made a note right here. This is up here is where Doug Dyer staged a play called Now the Revolution that caused a scandal because they had nudity and all that in it. And it was the best evocation of an acid trip I've ever seen. That was a genius, a theatrical person. So we moved across.
They're mentioning informal class.
Oh, yeah, right. Another thing that the university was the epicenter of everything that happened in the late 60s, early 70s. In the 24th and Guadalupe was the crossroads, but we all hung out at the university, and there was the cafeteria in the university was called the Chuck Wagon. And the Chuck Wagon, the Methodist Student Center, Lazy Bee Coffee House, which came along later, University YMCA, and I guess that's about it. Those were the main places that everybody hung out in. That you could have a crush on somebody and you'd see them there, one of those places for sure. So it was a big epicenter for gay people to meet up. Then
Informal classes.
the student union sponsored it's called the informal classes, and you can get it. You can just take courses in basket weaving, playwriting, whatever, all the way up and down scale. And they even sponsored some of the gay consciousness groups there. And the university discovered us though and kicked us out, and we moved across the street to the University Y. And then the focus came.
Here's the University Y.
Yeah, this is the old University YMCA that they tore down. The Scientology building there is there now. They should never have torn that building down. We can tell it's historically and architecturally significant. But anyway, so the focus of gay liberation. I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, actually, the building ended up, everybody hated to have it torn down, but it was condemned structurally. It was about to collapse.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, it did have wooden floors. If you're ever there, you could feel every step that you took, because the bottom floor was wooden and the second floor was wooden too. So I can see how it was dangerous. But anyway, it's hard to see it go. It's always hard for me to see any of those old buildings go. But so the focus at gay liberation there in the Y became on getting back onto the university. And that caused bifurcation in the group, because people like me didn't particularly care about being on campus. We decided that we could do it without being on campus. But the more middle class and in gay liberation, the first thing that a person would say who was speaking for the first time would say, "I'm a human being first, and then I'm gay." And then I would always say, "Well, being gay is being human." But anyway, the Chuck Wagon.
We're moving to the drugstore.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is up here, upstairs here, is where the University Y moved, and the rag was produced up there, and these wonderful people. Alan Pogue lived in his. You know who Alan Pogue is, right? The photographer, world famous photographer. And he lived in his studio there, and he could get in and out. He could have a yoga class going on, and he could creep in and out without history. There was a humor magazine on UT campus called The Ranger, and they produced a map of all the different groups that hung out in the Chuck Wagon, the Spartacists, the Marxists here, and they had a slot for gay people. And at that period, you could go into the Chuck Wagon at 8 o'clock in the morning and not leave until 8 o'clock, because you'd sit at a table, and then when the classes would change, the shift would change, and have a whole new conversation going. I've done it many times, stayed there all day long, And it was a place also, even though it was a safe place for gay people. There was a very famous artist, Jeffrey Graham, who was very beautiful, one of the most beautiful persons you'd ever see. And he would arrive, the doors would swing open, and Jeffrey would arrive, And and then there was another character named Will Brito, who was a Cuban aristocrat. And he, after, I'll get to this, but in 1971, we sent a letter out all over the country inviting everybody to come to Austin for the first National Gay Liberation Conference. And so people from all over the country came, and we weren't prepared here because we were mostly boys, you know, I mean, upper middle class to upper class boys identified as men. And all of a sudden there were all these drag queens, and not only drag queens, but intersexual types and everything and the first night we met at the Universalist, this is the Varsity Theater there, where that's the corner of 24th and Broadway. That was the center of one of the centers of the universe too. But we had this meeting, the general meeting, the first time at a Unitarian Universalist church, and all the feminists, drag queens, etc., insisted that their issues be preeminent, that gay liberation focus not on what we were focused on, but which was mostly there were a lot of history people. The classics department was big at UT and had a lot to do with how we saw ourselves. You know, I took read the symposium with Thomas Gould, a famous scholar there at UT, and in the chuck wagon, you could sit with William Gottlieb, who was a great historian in the Western United States, Varney Gregorian, who became the head of the New York Public Library later, Nikolai Sikorsky, whose father was a famous painter. Anyway, you could sit with these people and sort of be in their aura all day long, you know. It was wonderful. And
Step back to
it. The conference, though, changed the focus of gay liberation in Austin. After it was over, it lasted for a week almost, and the whole West Campus participated. The churches served breakfast and put people up in the houses, and the whole campus areas, West Campus, participated in that conference. It was an amazing thing because the first support in town for gay people came from straight people. Radicals who saw, they were mostly communists actually, who saw gay people as part of the avant-garde, and so we got a lot of support from the radical community. Then after the conference, that had a big effect on the whole of the city, first of all, and then especially the radical community. But the focus inside the gay world changed to drag. You're supposed to wear dresses, and everybody more or less complied. I never went out in public in a dress, but I'd have dinner in drag, stuff like that. But let's see now. Have I gotten way ahead of myself? Yes, I have.
Well, I would just back to the.
Yes.
So you said the focus, all these drag queens, so all the other groups had to sort of comply or change their attitude or.
Well, I'll tell you an anecdote about that. There was a guy behind the Varsity Theater there, and there was this really déclassé neighborhood. There were about 5 or 6 houses there, and it was a real slum, and all of the people lived in one of these houses there in drag, and they lived in drag. They didn't just wear drag, they lived in it. And this one guy who lived there got a draft notice from the draft board. He went around, he was living in a black satin slip and barefoot most of the time. So he went to the draft board with a baby on one hip, and he said, when he got there for his interview, he said, "I've got babies to take care of, and I can't be bothered with all this thing like that." Big draft board. I said, "Well, Mr. whatever his name was, you're excused." But anyway, it did change. And for me, I went to the meetings there at the University of Hawaii for 2 years, and the meetings were held by consensus. There was no majority vote, so they were just interminable. And there was a guy named Troy Stokes from San Antonio who would ask the most obtuse questions, and it would just keep going on. And finally, after 2 years, I was ready for, something else. And then when those guys arrived in their dresses and everything, they brought quilts to sit on the floor, and they would sit around singing their gay liberation songs. And I thought, this is not my style. And so I stopped going. And but another anecdote. Because of all this activity, also the track was completely unknown. I mean, when we sent out that letter, people didn't have any idea we're all to Texas, but they came. But it attracted, Austin was also known in those days as the Palm Springs of the movement. And we were highly criticized because we weren't revolutionary enough, because we weren't oppressed. I mean, we were not oppressed, And so, but anyway, it attracted a lot of people from New York and California, because people came from New York driving to LA and then get stuck in Austin. It's called the Velvet Rut. And they couldn't get out, Anyway, a lot of people came, and there was this meeting at the Gay Liberation meeting, and this guy named Possum was there, and he introduced himself, and the first thing he said was, "The next son of a bitch that oppresses me, I'm gonna cut his dick off." And I said, after the meeting, I said, "Well, don't you think that's a bit excessive?" I'm extreme, well, no. Anyway, he and his group, his father, Possum's father, had to have some help getting his hay in for the summer, harvesting the hay and baling it and all that. And so Possum and this bunch of drag queens went out to Johnson City and completed baling the hay and everything, and they would ride out to the fields on the back of a flatbed of a truck, singing their dresses, singing their songs and clapping and everything. But by the time they were coming back in the evening, all the people out there in Johnson City were lined up on the road just for the show, But let me see. I wanted to. I keep flashing around. The drag area at that time, all along from about 20th to 24th, there were people selling flowers. There were sandwich trucks. It was just a hotbed, There were people. It was where everybody went. You go there and spend the day, right? Out of that came the 23rd Street Market, where the famous fresco, the famous painting there is of Austin from the day. And Chambers Restaurant was where you went to, if your parents came to town and you wanted to go to a little nicer place than the Chuck Wagon, took it to Chambers Restaurant. We had that up there. It was right here. And then the Texas Theater was an art film. It showed foreign films. I saw many movies there. And then let's see now. Chambers is what was here. This is Chipotle is where Chambers is what. Yeah, but
Was there a demonstration against Chambers or with Chambers?
well, I doubt it would be against Chambers, because the son of the owners was a gay boy.
Oh,
He was in law school at the time. He's kind of a friend of mine, actually. But anyway, and also his lover at that time was this guy named Richard Royal, who eventually founded his Round Top and the Winedale Festival out there, with Ms. I'm a Hog as the sponsor. And we all had hair down to our butts in those days, and Ms. Ima didn't like long hair. And Richard was going to Europe, and he said, when I come back, I'm going to introduce you to Ms. Ima. You get your haircut. And so I didn't get my haircut. He came back and took one look at me and said, "You wretched boy." But anyway, see, when I get started on these anecdotes, I forget my program.
There was a picture there of the Methodist Synod Union.
Okay.
It was Bob Ryan.
Right. Oh, you knew Bob Ryan.
I'm a United Methodist minister.
Oh, well, that was, the Methodist Student Center was where you went for any kind of event. Bob Bryan would allow, the rock bands. There was a restaurant there called Satva, an organic vegetarian restaurant. I worked there, my first job that I ever really had. And but Bob was kind of a saint,
He helped to integrate varsity theater.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that. Well, there was Austin integrated fairly early, as I recall. Mid '60s, I think, is when all that happened. There was a gas station that was a big focus up on 38th and around that 33rd. At that time, 33rd Street was an entrepot for all the marijuana that came into Austin. All the dealers lived on 33rd Street. And anyway, I told you these anecdotes get me off track. So,
So we had
this is the Methodist Church. This is the parking lot of the Methodist Church. The Methodist Student Center was directly across the street, and it was built out of that same fieldstone. And as soon as it was time, they tore the Methodist Student Center down as the parking lot. Same thing with the Pearl Street Warehouse. You may remember the legendary Pearl Street Warehouse, which was down the street at 17th in Colorado from this neighborhood. The Pearl Street Warehouse was run by a big lesbian named Marie Nora. And the janitor was a guy, I guess, Will Brito, this Cuban aristocrat. And he was famous for, there was a song on the jukebox called Clean Up Woman. And that was Will Street to perform, Q to perform. He had danced to Clean Up Woman. But anyway,
What are you going to tell about Will Brito?
Will Brito was from, well, he was born in Havana. His family owned an estate in the middle of Havana since the conquest. And he maintained, and I think it's probably true, that he was descended from the four kings and four saints of Spain. His mother was an international debutante at the Plaza Hotel in her day in the late 40s. And when the conference happened and everybody came to town and drag became the thing, Will took it to heart. And he had a champagne lace dress that he had big royal feet. And he wore these Birkenstocks and champagne silk dress with a lace skirt. And every bead that he was famous for his beads and earbobs and all that stuff. And I was in the union with him. He comes down the hall, and people sort of made way for him as he came. I mean, he had on a yellow jumpsuit that he had sewed himself from a woman's pattern. So there was no place for you know what. And so he's coming down the hall, and he's got all those beads on, and they're bones and beads and pearls. And anyway, so I catch up with him, and he says, "Dennis, I don't know why, but everybody's staring at me." I said, "Will, have you taken a good look at yourself?" Anyway, he eventually got a degree in art history. He was very, very intelligent, one of the most intelligent persons I've ever known. And when he went to art school over on the East Campus there, he became best friends with this woman, a British woman named Shirley Alexander. He dressed in, Oxfords and tweed suits, and you see them walking across together. Couldn't figure out who was who, who had what, but he was quite a character, and he's still famous in the circle that we ran around with. Let's see.
We've gotten to Les Amis now.
Okay, Les Amis. You could get a bowl of rice and beans and a glass of iced tea for $1.50 there. And Newman, the manager that ran the place, kept Alan Pogue alive. He fed Alan Pogue 2 meals a day. If you don't know who Alan Pogue is, he became famous for his photographs of El Salvador and Guatemala. And he goes all over the world with that reputation now. And he's a capital fellow. I haven't seen him in a while. There are very few of us left from that era in Austin anymore. There are some of us left. We usually see one another at funerals or weddings or something like that. But
I've got the hippies in front of. Look, I mean.
oh, and this is the staff. I don't know if they dressed up for it or not, but you can see this woman, she's doing her business. But you remember Les Amis? You should be.
Where is it?
It was
24th.
24th.
About a block from.
One block.
Right there. That big dorm is there, right across the street.
Yes.
And Whole Earth, first Whole Earth store was right next to it. And it was just out the door from the Methodist Student Center. And I would imagine that 2 generations of people worked in, waiting tables and all that. But at the waiting station, carved into the wood of the waiting station was the motto, "Don't give an inch," or "Never give an inch," from the Ken Kesey novel. And they didn't. But it was where I learned to drink wine. I would never particularly like drinking wine, but you couldn't help it. You go there on a hot Friday afternoon and you'd end up drunk many times. But and the people that worked there were mostly students, I would think, and highly intellectual. There was a very, very, very smart group of people to be around, entertaining, and I never got a job there because I didn't work. I had the reputation for not working, and I didn't work. I've always been subsidized most of the time for my writing, and I could never get a job there. But let's see, where are we now in the building phase?
Well, now we've got the chambers of student demonstration.
Okay, we think this is close to the demonstration for Kent State. You were there? Well, it started on West Campus. There were no, West Campus was just a lawn. There was no, it wasn't paved or anything. That fountain that's there now was not there. And after I'll take the check wagon this in a minute, but the march started there on West Campus, right by the tower, and came down West Mall, and then it turned right here to go down one loop, and then it went to 20th Street and turned down 20th Street, and then on Congress to the Capitol, and we took the Capitol. I was inside the Capitol, and I said to myself, "My God, I got to get out of here. They'll put me under this." Sure enough, and there were windows that were broken, all that kind of stuff. But the somewhere right close to the Kent State incident, there was became known as the Chuck Wagon riot. What happened was there was a demonstration out in front of the Union, and there was a provocateur there. I can still see him in my face right now. He had a cane and long black, and nobody knew who he was. And he was riling the crowd up. I guess we were sort of vulnerable to that kind of stuff at that time anyway. But so we all went into the Chuck Wagon, and the administration came, the university administration came and said, "All you non-students have to leave because, we're going to bust you. We're trespassing." And so I left. I wasn't registered at the time, and the police came, and there really was a minor encounter between the police and the students there in the Chuck Wagon. And after that's when they built all those walls around the university. The university didn't have any of those brick walls around until the Chuck Wagon incident. And I think that happened in conjunction with Kent State. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly.
I think it was.
Yeah, but something else, another point the faculty at UT was more or less on our side about the Vietnam War and, you know, all these issues that homosexuality, everything that came up. And at one point there was a vote taken in the faculty senate, and the faculty senate supported a resolution against the Vietnam War. It was one of the proudest moments. These old geriatric types with their famous, you know, hats from the universities where came out, and there was a cordon of students all along from the union to the tower, and we were they were like me now. That reminds me, I have just discovered today from seeing myself on this that I've got a bald spot coming. I didn't know that.
No.
I still see myself as that kid. Oh, that's the chub wagon right there.
Yeah.
That's yeah, chub wagon. I guess there's one reason I'm stayed kind of youthful. I don't see myself as I am. I see myself as I remember myself.
That guy.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Anyway, let's see now. Where are we now, Toby?
Well, we've gone through our slides.
Okay.
You're welcome to tell us another story or two. And one of the stories we'd like to hear, I always like to hear, is about Hippie Hollow.
Oh, okay. Well, my group of people moved into a house at first in Natchez. I mentioned it earlier. It's now they moved the house, and the convention center is built over the site. And the house didn't have any screens on it. The shower emptied into the basement. There were mosquitoes everywhere, and it was hot. That summer was really, really hot. And so we started going to driving out to Lake Travis when the sun set to go skinny dipping. And then we decided, well, why go just at night? Why not go during the daytime? So we started going out and skinny dipping in the daytime. And so we're all there once. And you have to remember that there was really a community, a radical community, not just a gay community, but radical community. And we did a lot of things together. And a lot of the people that were just in this general group that were out at Hippie Hollow that afternoon, and all of a sudden here came the police. And somebody luckily threw me a pair of cutoffs, and I got them on before the police got there.
Yeah.
But they arrested like 20 people, you know, and took them to jail. And in the meantime, there was an election, and the sheriff changed from whoever it was, and a guy named Raymond Frank was elected, and he began getting guff from the, you know, powers that were, and the newspaper about not busting the hippies at Hippie Hollow anymore. And he said on television, "I've got more to do than chase a bunch of naked hippies around." and then that became Hippie Hollow.
What year was that?
I'm gonna say close to 70. I don't know. It could have been a little earlier, you know. I don't remember the dates like I used to. But yeah, around 1970, I think. I think we were living at Nature Street from 69 to 70. But 68 was a big year because of the assassinations. King and Kennedy were assassinated in 68. And that sent shockwaves through the whole country, but especially in Austin there because of the way that we had aligned ourselves politically.
Well,
Yes.
how about your friendship with Jim Flora?
Okay, just
Oh, Jim Park has a question.
Dennis, were you a freshman in '69?
no, I was a graduate student.
Oh.
I graduated from the University of Arkansas in 1964. And
Step back into the.
I came down here to train for the Peace Corps in 65.
Oh, okay. The Whitman event was in '66, in
Yes.
August of '66.
Well, I was on campus for that. I was at the law school that, which was out of range of the guns, but we could see the bullets hitting the stadium. You know, that's how far you could shoot. The whole town, when it was announced on the radio that he'd been killed, the entire city of Austin converged on the campus. And I walked across they had us under lockdown until 3 o'clock. And I didn't get off work till 4. And I walked across campus and I said, well, I'm not going to chase the ambulance, you know, I'm just going to go home. So I did. And there was still blood everywhere, you know, where they had dragged people in and all that. Then I went home and I was in shock, you know. I think we all were in a way. But I was walking down Rio Grande and across from the Lutheran church, there used to be this little park. They had swings and swing sets and everything, and railroad ties and benches to sit on. So I sat down in that little park and wept as a, you know, late reaction to the whole thing. Yeah, it was I think that event welded my heart to Austin. I think that's why I've always come back here, because, you know, you not only get attached to places and people and things because of good things, but something awful like that can attach you. And I think that's what I think happened to me, you know. And I've always come back to Austin. I've lived in New York, I've lived in San Francisco, Seattle, San Antonio, and I've always come back here. I still feel that same thing. I mean, it doesn't look anything like it used to. Downtown is, you know, skyscrapers and all that, but it still feels to me the same way. I don't know, maybe that's just a concede on my part, but I still love Austin, even though it's, you know, nothing here particularly like it was when I first came. But when I first came here, it was like a park with buildings in it. Okay, where are we now? Oh, back to him.
Maybe we could be done, or you want to take a few more minutes? Want to hear another story?
Questions?
Okay, question. How about his book?
Oh, well, let me tell you. I have written. This is the first book of a trilogy called the Fire Trilogy, called As the Fire. The second book is called Cast the Cold Eye, and the third, which I just finished, is called From Time to Time. It's called the whole thing is called the Fire Trilogy, and I'm hoping to have it published. And anybody have a question, or that I?
You mentioned earlier about the draft, about the guy that took the baby. I mean, that was a real scare for you guys, because this is right in the middle of Vietnam. Is it something that you all kind of talked about, worried about, and what did you plan about if you were called up, what you were going to do? Or?
Well, you know, most of us have checked the box. You know what that means. You go check and apply. There's a question that says, have you ever been homosexual? And most people say yes. So that disqualifies you for the draft. But it was a real concern, you know, and not only that, but it wasn't easy being a radical hippie. You know, I mean, you could get jerked off the street for long hair and, you know, have your head shaved, stuff like that. But Austin, it just wasn't like that, really. You know, there was something. I think that, you know, there was at one point in the mid-50s during the beat era, there was a peyote farm at Airport and Oahu. All of the beatniks, Allen Ginsberg, W.S. Berwin, you name them, came here for the peyote.
Wow.
And I think that sort of was the initiation for this city, because psychedelics were legal at that time, but nonetheless that had a huge influence. Most people lived here and they ate here, they went out to restaurants, and so the whole city became acquainted with them, I think, to a certain extent. And you know, there's an orderliness about Texas, not wanting to be messed over, you know, fucked with. UT at this period that we're talking about, there were a lot of people from the country, a lot of provincials You know, like I say, in West Texas, you have to get out of the way of the rattlesnakes, the copperheads, the tornadoes, and the dust storm. You know, and these kids have grown up like that. You know, and so there was they had an irony about them that became projected, I think, generally. And those people also were very good humored. I love West Texas. I'm one of the only people that says that, but I love West Texas. And I feel that here. You know, I've always felt that these country people, but there were also, you know, like Thorne Dreyer, the guy who was still shepherding the rag. He's straight out of Houston. You know, his father was an artist and mother a radical artist. So it was a blend of those two things. You know, the urban hip and the provincial naivete that I think created the ambience that became what we call Old Austin. And it was great fun. That's another thing. Nobody had, yes.
That was also one of the great eras of Texas football.
Oh, right, yes. Well, you know, the hippies had to avoid the drag when UT won a game.
Which was quite often.
Yeah, which is all the time. Right.
An impression that West Texas was very conservative, but my late husband and I were going to Big Bend, and we spent the night in Marathon. And so the nighttime marathon was like 3 blocks long. And so we were walking down the street and we came to a bookstore, and there in the front was a book by Jim Hightower and Molly Ivins. And I thought, okay, I've got to get rid of that stereotype.
Well, I think it's
A lot of
both.
Houstonians Marathon.
I think it's both. You know, there's a conservative. I'm from Arkansas. You know, the rural Arkansas.
Bless your heart.
But the little town, the part of Arkansas that I'm from, has that same conservative bent. You know, but outside town, about 4 miles out of town, on Highway 67, which is the main thoroughfare, it said "Alto, bienvenidos." You came on just a few more a mile or two, and there was a chain link fence around 2 tree rows, 2 picnic tables, and an outside shower. And I was teaching down in the valley, and the kids were asking me, "Where are you from, Mr. Paddie?" I said, "Well, I'm from Post, Arkansas." To a person, they stood up, boys and girls, and yelled, "So, bienvenidos," because that when they were leaving the valley to migrate, Hope, Arkansas was their first stop on the route. So it's a combination. In Arkansas, for most of my adult life, the senators were very liberal. You know, the governor. So the stereotypes don't work. You know, and West Texas, I think that survivalist aspect about their tornadoes, rattlesnakes, and everything, I think it makes them. They have it independent. They're right. There's an ironic independence that goes with everything that they do out there. You know, so I spent a lot of time out there actually. But
I have a question.
oh, who?
Here.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Dennis. My name is Jim. So I was have a question. You have all of this history, and
Yes,
I
sir.
just wondered. And I was just wondering, do you work with anybody to archive all of this history and preserve it? Because it's like you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of memorabilia and stuff. I came to Austin in 1973, and so I was just wondering if I remember a lot of what you talk about, and so I was just wondering if you have. I know that the Austin Public Library has like LGBT kind of history section or whatever. I just wanted to know if what you are doing to preserve this.
Well, we have started it's called the Memory Project at the Austin History Center, and it is an attempt to agglomerate any physical or videos or any kind of oral or histories on video of all this that we're talking about.
And that's why we're videotaping.
Right, and one of the things that I should have started out with that, because that's like an umbrella that tells the whole thing. We started the Memory Project the month that the pandemic hit, and we had planned to have a big initiation, with food and everything there at the History Center, and they're very supportive. they want to be a magnet center for gay history. And it's hard to get people to do that, though. I don't know, maybe just forget about it, or it's not part of their, stack or whatever, but that's what we'd like to have. We'd like to have all the documents and videos and whatever that people have at the History Center. I donated my papers to the History Center 2 or 3 years ago, and they had 43 boxes of my 43 archival boxes of my papers.
Wow.
It's not data entered yet. I haven't been able to get over there and do it, but they're very, very supportive, and they want and I could have given my papers to the Ransom Center or to the one over on by the LBJ Library. What's that called? The library over there.
Briscoe Center.
Briscoe Center, right? But I chose the Austin History Center because it's downtown, first of all, and I thought it would be more accessible than out in the campus area. But yeah, we'd like to have. If you have anything, we'd love to have it.
Well, Jim, we'll
Okay.
speak with you about, we'll do a recording. We'll talk to you.
Okay, any other questions?
How does your playwright work into your early career here in Austin?
Well, in 1983, I guess it was, my first play was produced at the Paramount. An object lesson, don't start at the top. start at the bottom, because when you start at the top, you're a target. And I was jumped. They jumped on me. The critics, other playwrights, everybody. I was an outcast for a long time. Then, Capital City Playhouse produced my second play, which is called Last Night at Mary's. If you remember the bar Mary's in Houston, that's another tale. But it's about Last Night at Mary's is about a gay murder. There's a guy named Fred Paez, and the Houston police just flat out murdered him. There was a post somewhere on Facebook recently about how the police operated in Houston. They would go in and just randomly pick a gay person, take it out, and execute them. And it was they were never investigated or anything. Fred Paez, I'm not sure that's what happened to him, but anyway, my play was based on that murder, and it was violent. I mean, it was sexual and violent, and the Chronicle published a review by this woman named Lana Dietrich, and she had never seen the play. And she called me everything you could call me in that review. I still can't get a play read in Austin because of that. Now,
I know Lana, so I understand.
pardon me?
I know Lana, so I understand.
Oh, do you? Okay. I saw her in the grocery store. She's white-haired as I am by now. But anyway, I guess that'll be it, guys. Thank you so much for listening.